Thanks anyway for coming down.
No worries.
We really appreciate it. I know you're a busy man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, total pleasure. So as you just rightfully asked before we rolled on the camera, is what are we doing here? So a good place to start is, so we wanted to kick off a podcast which definitely encapsulates the blockchain industry, but obviously because we're very much focused on the same people, the students, and taking care of people in that direction, we thought it'd be ideal to have you come on down, considering you're currently CEO of Study Gold Coast.
Yes.
Have a big active part in the student, what students are doing here on the coast studying, and including, possibly getting international students back into the market, which is exciting. Yeah. So I just want to say thanks so much. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. And I'm looking forward to an update on what's happening in the world of blockchain from you gentlemen. I'm
sure you'll get it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Maybe give us a little bit of history. That'd be awesome.
So as outlined, I'm the CEO of Study Gold Coast, and prior to that, I guess I was working at TAFE Queensland as the Director of Business Development and looking after the front end of the business, so student recruitment more broadly and new opportunities with commercial engagements was my role there. And I spent just shy of 9 years doing that, and that exposed me to, I guess, quite a broad range of industry sectors. And I guess I also managed the team through the Commonwealth Games, which was interesting, and we signed the Commonwealth Games agreement. So we came along with Gold Doc's journey into the Commonwealth Games, and that was what led me into, I guess, this role at Study Gold Coast was being part of the Games, and then seeing the development that happened on the coast during those times and the opportunity that lies as a destination.
Yeah, well, it definitely is one of those, and it's interesting at the moment. I'm working on a collaborative deal with some people in Sweden. Really attractive for potentially doing exchange student opportunities when the borders open and whatnot. And student took a different approach, like for the COVID thing, which right now they're in quite a really strong position. And and it's one of those things where he said, okay, as early days conversation, it was like, well, where are you guys based in Australia? And we said, the Gold Coast. And then back and forward with some photos, and he's like, oh man, this opportunity, wow, look how good it would be. We can do skiing and snow, and then come across to the beach and the lifestyle, the sunshine, and so very attractive.
Look, it's I have one of the best jobs on the planet, I think. Marketing the Gold Coast isn't a difficult job because of the beauty and the lifestyle, and I guess just the environment lends itself to such a golden opportunity for young people to get a good education and have some fun and enjoy themselves while they're doing it. And I guess COVID has really shone a light on safe destinations around the world. Not only safe from a people to people type scenario, but more health related safety. And Queensland and the Gold Coast has done really well in terms of COVID numbers and managing the issues. Absolutely. So
it's kind of I started off, like, I'm from Melbourne, so I ended up here as just ended up where I used to holiday. I used to come up here every year, and just to be able to actually live here is, you kind of live in paradise, don't you?
Exactly. And I guess it's one of the only places as far as a destination that is so diverse. We talk about having 1 in 3 people born internationally, and with that comes an element of globalization, and thinking outside the box. I mean, just look at you two gentlemen and blockchain for an example. What a beautiful place to have an idea and bring it to life like you have done. And I'm keen to hear a little bit more from you guys about what's happening in the blockchain world. And I know from an educational standpoint that everyone we talk to is really keen to work with innovations and innovative people to try and get these ideas off the ground. And the coast is a great place to do that. So what is happening in the blockchain industry and sector?
A lot, I'd say, is, and without being too vague, so just high level, a lot's going on. And what's interesting with the blockchain space particularly is from a technological point, it's accelerating like exponentially. And we're getting all the other emerging technologies, AI and machine learning and stuff, really starting to get traction as well. And what a lot of people don't quite get yet is that blockchain underpins this and ties a lot of these emerging technologies together. And so we'll see blockchain become more of an underlying fabric, and more of almost like an infrastructure layer that it'll just become. And hopefully at one point in the not too distant future, we won't even need to mention blockchain. It's just the typical way of doing things for the right applications. And it's not always the right applications, but just on the government's front, even last night we had a call which was run by Blockchain Australia and Karen Andrews' office, Chloe White from the Science Technology. I can't remember what industry group. I should know this. But anyway, they ran an amazing call last night. And they touched on how the government's now allocating, I think, $6.5 million of funding directly into the blockchain space, which is for a couple of pilots to get it moving. There's a lot happening in the credentials area, so academic credentials, which even we have some projects happening in that space. Then from the education, like as you definitely know, is we've got the diploma, the advanced diploma. We've got our third qualification just about to get lodged, and that's with AI and machine learning. So it's very much tying things together, big data, Internet of Things. And we're even marking out a whole bunch more for 2021. So it's exciting. It's moving fast. Also on the project side of things, just actual technological development, applications and dApps and things like decentralized applications. There's momentum happening, and then we've kind of almost got like a second wave in the cryptocurrency side of things, all at the same time. And we've seen these cycles being around the space for a while. We saw back in 2017 the hype cycle where Bitcoin ran up to $20,000 or whatever, and then it crashed down to 3,000, and then off it goes again. And wherever it is, regardless of price, what we're seeing though is the movement of attention. And so when that hype cycle happened, a lot of people heard about Bitcoin and altcoins and all these different projects that sort of were coming to life in the crypto side. But parallel to that, and when the crash happened, it was actually great because it kind of allowed the technology of blockchain to get separated from the crypto hype. So it took the speculative element out of the technology for a while, and it allowed blockchain to kind of get its foothold, particularly in the commercial sectors where you've got big business and where they're spending money. And there's always the argument, are they really in blockchain? Is it more distributed ledger? And whatever the technology, we're not really arguing that side. What we're talking about is people are looking at it for its application value. And so this is coming to a more mature stage as far as that. And then we're getting now decentralized finance and all sorts of other crazy wild ideas, very abstract things coming out of it. But what it allows for is that the doors are opening up to it. And this is where we'll see more and more businesses redesigned from the ground up. So it's happening.
It's interesting. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I wonder what role big data will play in feeding into the narrative around blockchain and the evolution of all tech industries. I wonder what the future of that looks like. And then you guys are a bit of a pioneer for the coast in terms of, setting something up that is the way of the future mixed with a balance of lifestyle in a beautiful place. And I think that's mixed with COVID has really changed the landscape of where people will choose to do business and how they do business. And I think your model is something we need to replicate more and more in all industries.
I think you're right. COVID's really exposed a lot of vulnerabilities. I think across all of the systems, like everything from the education system to data to security to government systems, and there really has been a huge amount of vulnerabilities. And then people look at it and go, what am I going to do now? And I mean, the amount of people trying to jump the border, for instance, over the last, we'll swim around at the point. You're right. The Gold Coast is an amazing place to be able to, I guess, incubate these ideas.
incubate and grow. The so I guess with the education sector, where do you see blockchain getting to? You talked about having it as an infrastructure that people work with in various different industries, but where do you see it feeding into education from a operational level, and then do you think this will become part of all courses or some courses, or so there's two questions in there?
Yeah, well, interestingly, we've got quite a number of international parties, universities and colleges who have approached us and said, hey, we understand that you guys are one of the very few around the world who are focused on the business application, which is really what we're focused on. We're not interested in teaching people how to code. We're more interested in the strategy and the implications of how does this affect business? Because if you don't get the strategy right, there's no point coding up whatever that gadget or widget might be. It's not going to solve the problem. So we because of that, we've had interest from all around the world where they've come at various different levels of education, and they're basically looking for we're in that shift point of where does it fit in their curriculum? Because especially example is one of the South American big universities has tens of thousands of students a year, and they said what we'd like to do with your course is actually put a couple of units across every single course that's in the university. Right now, for us, that's a monumental opportunity, but also for all the people who are in, because then they get the concept of blockchain. So it doesn't mean that they'll make a profession out of it. Doesn't mean they're going to be a blockchain expert or a strategist or anything like that. All it really means is now they have an understanding, and regardless if it's a fashion industry, if it's logistics, food, business in general, finance, literally every sector there, IT, the law, accounting, it all relates, because it's not specifically, it's a protocol level, but it has potential to disrupt many industries, not just one. So same education is the same, but how to utilize it? Well, the simple ones, as I mentioned before, is even in basic credentialing and recognizing skills of people and being able to say, okay, you got this degree or you got this qualification, but in that you've got all these subset skills which maybe are hard to quantify as a degree. But then when you go to an employer, they want to know, do you actually have that skill? Not only do you, otherwise everyone's got that Photoshop degree from somebody else and they change the name and they're using someone else's identity, Dr. essentially. Well, Dr. Burns, here we are, right? But when you start looking into even industry sectors, and you might talk about mechanics, for example. Well, you have a diesel mechanic that can work on a forklift, but you have a diesel mechanic that's working on a D9 dozer in the mines. If that's the thing, I just made it up. I think it is.
I think you're spot on.
And so they might have the skill set of being able to use a spanner or a socket set or whatever. But when you talk about a socket that this round, maybe they don't. Maybe they have to have heavy lifting skills or whatever it might be. They have to be a certain size to pick the thing up, because the nut might be this round, right? So all of a sudden, that same skill set doesn't necessarily relate to different areas within the industry. However, you could quantify that and have it as almost like micro credentials, but having that credential written to the blockchain, so then it transfers across regardless of where you learned that skill. Right. So and that's more than it becomes a more functional application when you start tying it with industry and employers and all sorts of things where they it's not just about, hey, this is my qualification, but it's, hey, this is my qualification, and everyone can check that across the industry and know that I've got those skills, and now all of a sudden you might be moving from a forklift mechanic to a D9 thing, and most of your skills transfer, but certain ones you need to fill. So instead of having to do a whole qualification or another apprenticeship, you go, well, I only need to cover off 3 topics here. So it takes you 3 weeks to get up to speed versus another 12 months or whatever. So we can save time in that. And that's, then there's also, there's millions of applications. The more I think about it, I'll be here all day. But just another one, for example, is on the international student market. I know for sure there's there's a lot of fraud happening around their application. So they have to have a certain amount of money.
Yes.
And their criminal histories and have to be clean and all sorts of stuff. They have to, sometimes it helps that they have, they have a certain track record. Well, a lot of this stuff gets photoshopped.
Right.
So there's whole divisions that spend their whole business model around, we have to check that this information is correct, because we can't put a fraudulent student across to the university or to the TAFE or to the college or RTO or whatnot.
Yeah.
So
how do you think blockchain feeds into that then?
Well, then you come down to the KYC application, the Know Your Customer.
Yeah.
So now if you validate a customer, and this is now, it actually solves a much greater problem. But we've just got to look at, let's solve a little problem and then expand on it, rather than try and solve everything in one fell swoop. It's not going to work. Right. So when you've got Know Your Customer, you can then have identity on blockchain, and then again you could have the banks validate without providing details, but they could validate that you have enough funds in your account. Right. So they wouldn't need to print out a bank statement, which could have been photoshopped. They literally go request to validate that this person has $30,000 or whatever in their bank account, and the bank says we can confirm that, and that's the end of that. Right. And digital signatures and whatnot. So you're approving access to certain information, and this is where it gets a lot more technical, and this is where the strategy comes in again. Right. If you get that wrong, it just becomes a gadget again. So like and this is just off the top of my head, you could go deep with, once you start exploring any industry sector, you all of a sudden find, wow, there's 5 or 6 uses there. There's six, and it's kind of the niche within the niche within the niche. And I think that's what's happening right now, is you're having millions of projects coming out solving all, like, a vast array of issues. But what will happen is it'll come then back to interoperability. So you're not siloing these opportunities. Initially you're solving that problem there, but if it can interoperate with other platforms, now all of a sudden you've got transferable data, which is the one of the tenets of blockchain, is being able to own and transfer data.
Okay, interesting.
So have you always lived on the Gold Coast?
No, so I grew up in Brisbane.
Okay, pretty close.
Pretty close. I was down here a lot during my younger years, and spent a lot of time on the coast. I've been living on the coast though for 20 years. 20 years. Right. So it's been a fair while. Local. I'm a definite Gold Coast tragic, and I love the coast. I think even through the challenging times that we've been going through, there's such an opportunity that lies within the coast. You know, it's got a spirit of its own that really breathes ambition and supports all different types of thinking. Whether it be whether you are an environmentalist or a property developer through to a technology whiz, or someone that just loves the destination like myself. It really encourages everybody. To really have a go, and empowers everybody to be the best they can be. I guess as a destination, it's not like a city. Some cities you go to and they're busy, and they've got a soul, but it's not dynamic and as encouraging as the coast is. Even if you're a retiree, you find retirees here on the coast love just getting out and having a crack, where in some major cities you can't, just because there's so many things that inhibit you doing that. So I think from my side of things, I'm passionate about the city, obviously, and I've combined that with a role at Study Gold Coast, where we have over 70 plus members that educate, I must say, up to 230,000 people that reside on the coast. So that's the quantum, and they say by Christmas there'll be 250,000 people engaged in some form of education here on the coast. Which is 250,000 people.
That's a lot of people.
That's how many people are on the Gold Coast now?
Over 600,000, so 660,000.
That's a big portion that are studying.
Yeah, exactly right. It's over 30%, right? Involved in some form of education, and so I guess as a city, we embrace good education, and we've got 3 world-class universities, and probably one of the most progressive TAFE systems in the country, and the government's really backing it. So I think there's an opportunity that lies within the coast to become recognised as something special in the education space. And what I like to see is providers partnering with groups or organisations like yourself to think outside the box. How do you apply something that is industry-led into education that breeds a different way of thinking, and that when you mix that with that spirit of the city, where people come out and think, wow, I grew up on the Gold Coast, but I can take over the world. That's the sort of...
The pinky in the brain mindset.
Yeah, exactly right. That's that sort of spark that you really see in some people that I sit down with on a regular basis, and I talk to them and they say, oh, we can do anything. And I love that.
Well, I love how you recognise that, and that's what I see in the coast as well. And I feel like right now we're at that perfect position where it's like an entrepreneur's dream for those who are inclined entrepreneurially and willing to take a bit of a risk and go for it. Because and with COVID, that kind of emphasised. You said there's like almost 250,000 people studying here. I think one of the things that COVID really brought out for the coast as well is, well, for everybody actually, not just the coast, is the opportunity to re-skill yourself now is probably the best time ever, because there's downtime, and instead of watching Netflix, you may as well upskill, get some skills, because the world's changing around you, and we're seeing a whole lot of uncertainty and instability, and industry sectors which were the bread and butter for a lot of cases, the hospitality industry and whatnot, got shaken to the core. Like, what? You can't go out. Like, you can't. Which luckily for us, it was very short term in Queensland, Gold Coast. We're lucky, but you see, okay, that's a bit uncertain. And then even the idea of a pandemic, and hey, do you want to, like, my view is like, do you want to study in medicine and like, or get into that? Like, personally, that would be a thing that I'd go, maybe I'll give it a miss and focus on something else. But we've got a big opportunity with all this where we can take that tech focus, because I believe overall Australia is not necessarily up there in the top ranks for tech skills, although we create some of the most amazing technology, like Wi-Fi came out of Australia, a whole bunch of stuff like this. And not to say that we aren't innovative, because we totally can be, and we are, but the focus is not as heavy on the tech. Like, obviously you got the subcontinent, you got like places like India, where there's just a tremendous amount of focus on technology and coding and whatnot. And here it's a lot lighter on. There's definitely skilled people here. But it creates that opportunity for people to explore different industry sectors where before they might be doing something and they say, well, hang on, I've been shaken to the core now with hospitality. I don't know if I want to go back into that just in case there's another thing that comes around. So what could I do?
What do you find is this like student sentiment right now? Like, I mean, I know I've been speaking to people and they're just sitting there waiting. They're like, we just want to come. We want to come back over. What do you reckon is,
So as far as international students are concerned, we know that there's 20,000 visa holders, so 21,000 visa holders. And the majority, over 80% of them, are still here on the coast. So they stuck with us through the pandemic. Obviously studying whatever course they were studying. Internationally, there's huge pent-up demand around coming out to study on the coast. We've had over 10,000 online enrolments into programs that are based here on the coast. So that would say that they may have their application for a visa in process, or they're working on having a plan to come out eventually after first semester or second semester, whatever it may be. So the sentiment around students that have stayed, they feel, we've seen recently there was actually a survey that went out through Edified that surveyed quite a number of students across Australia, and the Gold Coast itself performed really well in terms of supporting students. Ourselves, we delivered over 30,000 meals to students across 7 locations. And the sentiment on the coast is, we're a warm, safe, well-supported destination.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to come and study here?
There was also stuff that was happening around housing, like assisting the students with their housing and all sorts of stuff
so we've had a student accommodation grant running at the same time, and that's been, the website views of that have been over 500,000 people.
Wow.
Have viewed that.
That's awesome.
Only
That's
in the
probably
last
the rest
couple
of
months,
Australia looking going, oh, maybe I can move up there and
maybe I could go from there, become a student.
And there's been hundreds of students that have come up from Sydney and Melbourne, quarantined and then joined their local provider to do their course. So, I mean, the demand is there. The diversification of programs for them to study is there. So you can come up and study medicine, blockchain, anything all the way through to, carpentry. Boat building is a really popular one here on the coast.
Good place to build a boat and then sail it, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Or, we are exporting super yachts. So out of Riviera and places like that. So there's a huge opportunity for people to come and learn skills that they can't learn anywhere else in the world here on the coast. So we're finding more and more the demand is there. I guess we've got to manage the COVID scenario. And one of the things, as you mentioned, a lot of students are reliant on their part-time and casual jobs to get them through their studies. And obviously tourism and major events was hit really hard, where it was all just turned off. And so we're working on a project that's going to see students being connected with industry. It's going to be called Gold Coast Student Jobs. And that's going to be a...
we need to talk.
So that's going to be a huge project for us.
That's awesome.
And it's going to hopefully, well, not hopefully, it will, get students back into an employment to support themselves. So it's a proactive support from the city, from Study Gold Coast to get people engaged and learning and earning at the same time, because that's the balance you want.
I saw something about that earlier about... actually, someone sent us a message literally before we walked in here about there being programs where people were getting paid and learning at the same time. It was kind of, is it a similar sort of program or?
Yeah, so this is going to be a website that essentially, think of it like Seek for students. It's going to be...
we definitely need to talk.
It's going to be a detailed version of that where it'll be all the jobs on Seek aggregated into a platform where students can sort through their preferred career path or even a part-time casual job or work experience will be on there as well. So it's going to be an amazing platform. Can't wait to launch it. We should be launching it in the next couple of weeks, and that'll be our way of giving back to the student community that have stuck with us, whether it be international or one of the 250,000 people that are studying here on the coast.
Awesome.
Makes such a big difference when students can actually go, okay, and they can find work as well.
Is
it connecting up like the interns and all that sort of stuff as well?
Absolutely. So there'll be a section where students can search by part-time, casual, internship, even work experience. And the beauty about it is it'll be free for businesses to log jobs and apply jobs on there. So at the moment, it's quite expensive to put a job up. It ranges between like $700 to $1,200. It's quite outrageous. So this will support the local business community, as well as get students back into supporting themselves and continuing on their learning journey.
Very cool.
Did you find there was a lot of people that sort of ended up having to go back, like during the whole, when it hit the fan? Proverbial hit the fan. Did you find there was a lot of people just trying to get home, or did you find people sort of tried to stick around?
It was a bit of a mixed bag. We did lose a lot of students in the early days, purely because the coast had done really quite well in establishing itself as a edu-tourism destination where students come out for short term and study English, study the shorter term programs at the high schools to get some sort of cultural immersion. And through that process, I guess when you're on a short-term visa and things get a bit unstable globally, the first thing you're going to do is jump on a plane and head back home to your parents, and your support network. So
parents going, come home.
Look, we did. we did get hit really hard with students opting out to go back home. However, I must say, 80% of them stayed in long-term programs, that spanned for 3 years. So they could see, this might just be a short-term thing. I've got it good here. If I go back home, I'm going to be in the same situation. I'm just going to be distanced from my provider. And the providers were great. They really reached out to their student cohorts and said, here's our plan. We're going to go online, but we're going to be there with you every step of the way. And even to the point of we've seen the number of jobs in education increase. So the providers really went to the stone and said, right, let's gear up so that we can support our students, because we know this is a short-term thing. It may last a year, 12 months, 2 years even, but post that, we need to have the infrastructure and the ability to get back moving and go from there.
I get the feeling it's going to be like an absolute tsunami of students coming to the Gold Coast when things do start to open up. I reckon it's just going to be absolute mayhem. Like I reckon it's going to be so good for the Queensland economy.
Look, I hope so. We know that migration is a part of the conversation around education and students coming out. Some students choose to study a particular field that leads to a migration pathway, and migration contributes almost 2% to the Queensland GDP.
Wow.
So I guess we can't afford to lose that.
No.
And equally, tourism on the coast is worth over $5 billion. To the local economy, and education is worth international education is worth 1.2 billion to the local economy. So
big money, isn't it?
You pair those together, you've got $6+ billion annually to the local economy that we just can't afford to lose.
I've seen you've been lobbying to get the maiden flights out here with the the first groups of international students. The safe corridor stuff. We're also like all about that.
Look, we've had amazing support around that, and our board is obviously made up of the universities, and they've also been working together as a collegiate group that have come together to put in a plan. Worked up with the Queensland government, and that's the first initial plan that we're hoping gets off the ground. The Queensland government, I guess, has to work out when that's appropriate. And we're hoping sooner rather than later. We don't want to put anybody's health at risk.
No, of course.
But there's ways you can do it. Our plan that we've put forward for the Gold Coast, we see that as a plan that has been well thought through. We're bringing in students at the moment from other parts of the country. Sydney, Melbourne, like I said, with our student accommodation grant, we've approved over 70. And as a case study, Bond University, which is just down the road from us here, they've had over 70 students come across the border and join in their programs as a university. So it's doable. People come in, they quarantine. We overlay a bit of a challenge in repatriation flights for Australians. But I guess there's an opportunity there to get on the front foot and take advantage of a great opportunity for us to be one of the first to come back online, and that may offset the cost of bringing back some of the Australians.
That's right.
But we would love to see everyone that's stuck overseas brought back first, and then these plans put in place early next year to have students return and come back to us.
You ran an awesome event at the Gold Coast Airport in one of the hangars a while back. That was like a pretty spectacular event, like having all the light planes around, and I mean, seeing what, like, I guess the way that they're having issues right now. They're saying that a lot of the airline pilots aren't going to they're going to be outside of their licensing by the time they actually, because you've got to flow in a certain amount of hours in the year. So it's going to be an interesting one, actually, getting the pilot numbers up to be able to actually bring in the people as tourism starts to open up and as migration.
I think it was Qantas was doing those looped flights where they weren't actually going anywhere. They'd just take off, fly around for an hour and then land. So maybe that was one of those things where the pilot was like, let's do this. I need my hours up.
And look, one of our members, Aviation Airways, where we had the event, and they have a simulator that's going flat out at the moment just for that exact reason.
Okay, cool.
Even when we had the event, we noticed there was it was good to see, hard to speak over in terms of the planes flying back and forth, but there's quite a bit of activity on the runway.
The helicopter and the plane.
They decided to wait till the speeches, huh?
Yeah, exactly right. We got started and then they went up and down. But I guess one of the challenges is going to be, the cost of flights and getting those airplanes back in the air. It's an important part of getting students to return is having, I guess, the access. And we work closely with Marion Charlton, Chief Operating Officer of the airport down here at the Gold Coast, and she's saying to me that even though things are really tough, she's optimistic. It's we wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world. Because when flights do start to switch on, people are going to want to come to the Gold Coast no matter what time of year it is. And, as destinations come online, there'll be the willingness to put on flights because we are such a desirable destination. So that's a positive.
Makes sense. Well, it really is, huh?
There was a bit of talk about opening the bubble to New Zealand, but then...
no, I think that's still going, right?
Yeah,
it's on the 16th of October, I think.
Yeah, okay, so that's soonish, very soon, I think in a week or two or whatever.
I think it's up to the New Zealand government, right, to whether they want to work with us or
people, but they won't accept people.
It's a bubble. A one-way bubble. You can take your people, but we're not taking yours. But that kind of bubble scenario makes sense for a few nations as well.
Sure.
From example, Taiwan and Japan and places that have managed their cases of COVID better than virtually anywhere else in the planet. And then they're also, like, I know, for example, Taiwan, because my wife's Taiwanese and whatnot, and my daughter was born there, and we go there a lot. Taiwan being one of the premium countries for Australia to attract the Taiwanese in for study, because they typically don't overstay their visas. They're great candidates. But those sort of corridors make sense, and I don't know if that's something that's in the proposal, is to open up to nations that are least risk first. Because let's face it, if you're bringing people from a country that has virtually no cases, it's even you now have even less of an opportunity to bring in something you don't want. You know what I mean? Like COVID can't happen if no one has COVID.
Exactly right. I think one of the things we've put in the plan is it's such an evolving scenario where we've got to evaluate on a case-by-case, market-by-market basis to say the likes of Vietnam and, Taiwan or Taipei or any of those places, take it by the actual population in that location. And like you were saying, we equally work with a number of destinations around the world. Last year I travelled to 9 different cities. And so we have relationships in those cities, and they're saying to us that, we don't have any cases. Not all of them. Obviously, some of them are really struggling with it, but some of those locations are saying, we don't have any cases. We would love to send out a plane load of students. The demand is there, so much so that some schools, some high schools, are looking to us to actually facilitate an online interaction with their students in groups of between 15 to 30, like an online study tool where we take a camera and a facilitator down to Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary.
Like, this is what you're missing.
Just so
look at these animals.
That's what
when you come here, you can touch them.
That's exactly right. And we're having schools all over the world sign up to that, because that cultural immersion piece is very important.
That's awesome.
In some cultures, it's almost part of their lifestyle and culture is to have that immersion with other destinations and other countries to get globalized. We in Australia don't necessarily have that same inbuilt desire to get out there and experience the world. Some of these countries, actually say to young people, go, experience the world, get out there. Don't come back until you can speak fluent English and you know the world inside and out, and then come back and then start a business and get on with your life. So that's just part of the way they operate.
Well, it's even interesting, like, again, Sweden, because of so much dealings going on there. Part of our thing is hopefully we're getting our course recognised for funding through the Swedish system, which would allow then Swedish students to come out to Australia fully funded. They'd get a wage to come out here and study. Yeah. So these types of things, and that's where the Swedish government's so proactive in the sense of go, whether you study here or you study there, we don't care. In fact, we'll pay a wage if you go and study abroad. Yeah. So for certain courses, and so we're hopeful we'll get that through in the not too distant future, which is pretty exciting. And that creates an amazing dual country study opportunity where you could do 6 months there, 6 months here. A lifestyle thing, and then I could imagine there'd be a whole bunch of Aussies who would go, I'm up for that. I'll go to Sweden. Yeah. Give me 6 months there or whatever it is.
And I guess that's an immense opportunity for us globally to expand our reach and have those reciprocal agreements. I guess equally, a number of those agreements are under a bit of scrutiny at the moment with geopolitical relations and things like that, which make it hard. But for no, I guess, fault of anyone's, those relationships need to be managed. And I guess the scrutiny that's going to be put around them is just so that they are non-influential agreements. So, making sure that they're at arm's length of any of our government to government relations or anything like that. They need to be outside of that, which makes sense. But I think there's an immense opportunity in that the agreements can become a little bit more focused on student outcomes. And, building the relationships and the relations between the destinations as friendship cities, as, as sister cities or whatever it may be. So huge opportunity with, program to program and destination to destination agreements that really stimulate some opportunity.
I saw you did one with Da Nang. Was it Da Nang in Vietnam recently?
Yeah, so the mayor signed a MOU with the view to, friendship city and then hopefully to progress one day to a sister city.
Cool.
There's so many...
it's a beautiful place.
It's amazing,
amazing
isn't it?
Place,
There's so many of those cities that when you compare them like for like with the coast, there's so many similarities, in population growth, in lifestyle, in same sort of similar challenges around the economics of things, city planning, so there's lots to be learnt from those sister city relationships and lots to be gained by having them. So, I can't wait to see what happens next.
It's an exciting time to be alive, really, isn't it? It's like there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, but I think there's also born out of a lot of stuff. You get a lot of opportunity, and a lot of doors are opening from countries going, okay, when this does sort of when we move past it, the opportunities are going to be immense, I think. Where
would you like to see it to go, Austin?
Wow, do you mean the Gold Coast or?
Yeah, where do you see us into the future?
Wow. Okay, so Gold Coast, I believe, lifestyle on the Gold Coast is unbelievable. I think that the Gold Coast has the opportunity to be an innovative and tech hub of Australia. Right. We've got there's a huge amount of really smart people around around the coast. There's a lot of really good projects. There's good providers, and when you sort of couple that with, the government starting to pay attention and people sort of good incubator programs and good student outcomes, I think that, all of a sudden we want to become the emerging tech centre of Australia. Yeah. That's what we'd like to see happen. Okay. I'm a big believer that, the only way that's going to happen is by enough people coming through and creating noise that people get excited about. Yeah. And I think there's a lot going on. There's a huge amount going on. We've had some good, actually made a good introduction recently that panned out well.
Yeah, even at the city level, there's passion around infrastructure that supports that. Yeah. And we've seen the free Wi-Fi network that's being rolled out. There's opportunity to commercialise that even further from what I hear. And I'm not very tech savvy myself, but I can see in the people that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, there's starting to become a bit of a groundswell around technology and the innovation that can happen that leads either to commercialization or leads to further research or supports either of those, right the way through to advanced manufacturing or manufacturing in general. Tech can revolutionize what we can do in that space.
Totally.
So what about yourself? What do you see coming out of this pandemic, and what would you like to see?
Well, I think Austin hit the nail on the head from like our personal interest and where we see the emerging tech space. But I'd say just to add to what Austin said is, I don't think there's a better geographical location on the planet at the moment. Like, just generally, like you think of Gold Coast, it's clean, it's safe, the air is good, it's not overpopulated, there's virtually no traffic. We've got everything we need. This is
good
and again, well, that's it. Good surf. There's nature. You can drive 15 minutes and you're in the rainforest, or maybe 20, depending where you live. And so we've got the right environment to cultivate some really serious things. And then, like you said, some of the infrastructure that is being put in place or is getting well established here. Even, for example, the introduction you made to TAFE Queensland, and then they got very excited about what we're doing. And it's really nice to see a big player in the vocational education space say, hey, we like what you guys are doing, and how do you see the future of education? And they see the need for this emerging technology play, and that there's enough people to adequately introduce it. And then so when we take the fact that TAFE recently built a tech campus in Coomera, I believe, and they're really interested in putting technology and cultivating technology, and that's here on the coast, right? So you've got infrastructure, like physical infrastructure, you've got the location, desirable location, you've got the entrepreneur sort of spirit, which is I think, and now you've got the groundswell, which you were just mentioning. It's the perfect storm to really cultivate something special, so that when Australia's on the map, like most people think of Sydney and Melbourne, then probably Brisbane and Adelaide, probably in that order for cities that are doing things. But I would think we could leapfrog a lot of them with emerging tech, and it doesn't take 1,000 companies to do it. What it does is take a few dedicated companies to make that kind of that asteroid impact on the area where the ripple effects go out and everyone goes, whoa, what happened there? So like, we don't even have to create necessarily a unicorn for that to happen, but we do need to make an impact. And from our perspective, and that's why we're so interested in the education side and getting the application values right, is we see if we can armor people with the framework and the skills to put projects together, then the outcomes for that is life-changing, because and then it comes back to the employability side of it, employment and opportunity. If you've got a startup that's well structured, that's investable, that's been well thought out, that's got a real chance of success because it's done properly. And then you meet that with a bit of investment or money, now you've got a business. And then that needs people, and then not just inside of the blockchain world, but you need all the peripheral services. So you need the marketing, you need the legals, you need the accountants, you need the support, you need the grunt workers, you need the tech people. And all of a sudden now you're literally incubating out these things. And I think we've got that right environment here to do it. And I think also with some of the smaller private providers or public trading companies that we're dealing with as well, who also offer our course, they've got major interest in cultivating the ecosystem around the skills, but also even, for example, one of our providers that we work very closely with has a very strong influence in India. And so obviously you've got all the tech players there, all the coders and a lot of very IT trained, very savvy IT people in India. However, they're lacking then the same thing, but then it allows for like Aussie innovation to be exported. So it becomes, is the Gold Coast the launch pad where we can put emerging technology on the map for Australia and export it to the country, but also to the rest of the world? And I think the answer is yes. Will it take some work? Absolutely. But no one's afraid. No one here is afraid of hard work. We'll work our asses off. But that's also creating that opportunity and that runway of opportunity to just get from the ground level up and build the foundational layers first. I think is critical. And you know, the whole reason we got to this place is because we kind of put the horse before the cart in one. Cart before the horse, whatever the saying is. Got that wrong. I was thinking about that. Yeah, it's going backwards, right? So but we put the cart before the horse in the sense that we had a great idea. We didn't thoroughly plan it out to start with. We reached out for experts. We found out there was a hole in the market, right? The experts. When I say we reached out to experts and found the hole in the market, we reached out to people who were supposed experts. We found out they weren't what they were cracked up to be.
Well, there was a lot. And there was no way of being able to judge who was who. That's
exactly
the problem.
Right.
The problem is globally there's no standards. So we actually wanted to, from the Gold Coast, create global standards across the blockchain space.
And I think that's happening now. And from our position, you know, it's exciting because I'm dealing with South Korea, South America in multiple countries, Dubai, and we've got interest in India, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland, Iceland. So all of a sudden,
taking over the world.
Well, pinky in the brain. We talked about that at the beginning, right? So ideally, is we get to that place where we've got distribution across the globe for our education product that we can say we are considered the benchmark standard. Now, whether they repackage it and stamp their own university or college logo is neither here nor there. If we can create that bar, that standard, and then we can hold people to that, then we literally, and this is, I guess, the legacy of all of this, and it's the way that we started this out. We said, well, if we're going to do this, let's do this all out and make a global impact so that we leave a legacy. We can change the way the world looks in a business context 20 years out, 30 years out from now, if we do the right things now. And that's ambition and a bit of craziness, but hey, if you're not crazy, then you're probably doing something wrong anyway. And you got to take the chance.
Look, and I think you hit on something really important there to understand is because we have such a beautiful lifestyle, we talk about this beautiful lifestyle, and lifestyle is so great here on the coast, doesn't mean you're not, doesn't mean you're not working harder than anyone else in the country. Because chances are you live on the coast, you've got ambition, you love where you live, but you're also working really hard because you love where you live. And you don't want to leave. You want to create something special. It's part of the culture. It's part of the narrative here on the coast. So you hit a nail on the head when you said, we're going to work really hard to set a standard. And I think everybody on the coast has that same sort of aspiration, is to set a standard. So, I can't wait to see where you guys get to, and I'll follow the journey, and just don't forget me when you get there.
Oh no!
Don't worry, you'll be a part of the picture. We'll be having a podcast 379,000. Maybe not that many. But when we get
1,001.
1,000
recap.
Checking in 1,000 podcasts later.
Right.
101. So I am looking forward to where we get to. I mean, you both outlined what your vision for the coast would be.
What about you?
Yeah, what's your vision for the coast?
Yeah, look, I think...
and I guess what's your vision? I guess there's two perspectives there. Your personal vision for the coast, and then your study Gold Coast vision for the coast, because they're probably two, they're probably similar, but two different visions.
Yeah, look, no one really talks about the challenges the coast has. And one of the major challenges we have is careers, right? For young people. I think I myself had to go work in Brisbane for a long period of time to get some experience, and that's not a bad thing. It made me fend for myself, and it gave me a dose of, this is what a big city's like to work in. But I must say, I'd love to see, this is my personal opinion, I'd love to see us have a few of those companies that make it big, that we can form, I guess, an ecosystem around that create careers for people. And I say that in a way of we do have some industries that are really booming, right?
Yeah.
And that are the foundation and bedrock of the city, which is, you know, your tourism, your education, your boat manufacturing, you know, tech, law is another one. We've got a lot of lawyers doing really well here on the coast. And so there are industries on the coast that are really, really robust and doing well.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'd love for us to turn into a city that has the lifestyle as well as the platform for young people to feed through their careers. So see their career from day one through to the finish. And I think that for me would be by podcast 1001. If we had made some steps, if we had made some good progress to that, I think that would be a good thing for our city.
Awesome.
I'm not a politician, and I guess the politicians set the policy framework that enables that. And we're lucky we've got a mayor that is very proactive, and he has a good, strong vision for the city. I guess one of the ways of going about that is having 4 key industries or 5 key industries that we really grow on now.
Behind.
You know, like that we call them out and say, this is something we're going to do, and we're going to do it really well. And then that gets communicated to young people in the city to say, if you have aspirations, become something in health, become something in education, become something in technology, become something in manufacturing, because that's what the city is good for and is known for, and we're right behind that. You know,
that's awesome.
So that's my thinking.
So in that then, what do you see as the area that where do you see the bridge that, or the let's say couple of key areas which you reckon is the hole in that equation right now where it's not fully formed, or do you think that's already kind of inevitable that's going to go there, or
what
what's
would make
missing?
the biggest impact?
What's
like
missing?
what do companies need, or private organisations need to do, or government need to do to actually make that happen?
I think
where do you see the holes?
I think we're on the journey.
I
think we need to fast track that journey. Particularly now that COVID has hit. You know, before COVID, December 2019, the education sector was absolutely booming on the coast.
Totally.
You know, you could open any job site and you could see a dozen or more, up to 100 jobs in education. And it was many different jobs. It was technology in education. It was, you know, infrastructure development in education. It was all things education were booming. I think now that COVID's hit, it's changed the landscape a little bit. And I think one thing we do need to invest in is technology that supports all of those industries. So feeding into what you gentlemen were saying around having an underpinning aspiration in technology would be a great thing for the city. I think it feeds into many different industries, a bit like education, you know. Young people that go through the education pathway, whether they be from, you know, let's say Chennai in India, in India, or they come from, you know, Ashmore here on the coast. If they've got an aspiration to be something, they feed into an industry, and they are the talent pool of the future, right? Where I think technology for us needs to be a similar sort of process. We need to nurture the technology infrastructure and the minds that can develop that and empower that technology, such as yourselves. We need to empower you to get on and feed into education. And then we'll be producing graduates that are world-class and, you know, job-ready, that can take on the world and set up something for the future of the coast, for the future of the world, to, you know, really put their stamp on the world. So I think either way, the coast as a destination is going to do well. It's going to take some bright and powerful minds to get us there. And
it's how we steer the conversation, right?
Exactly right.
How we steer the conversation.
As you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about it, though.
Yeah.
Well, it's been, I've been, at a bunch of the Study Gold Coast events, and I don't really know Study Gold Coast before you were there, but all I know is every event that we've been at has just been the way you bring all of the educators and the people together is it's just next level. Cool. All the different providers, they work together, all the different, everyone goes and just networks and bumps ideas around, and it's epic. It makes a difference. And it's always a pleasure. It really is.
One of the things when I'm coming up on 2 years now in the job at Study Gold Coast, which has gone really quick. We've had a bit of a challenge in coming onto Study Gold Coast, and then, but I guess we're really lucky. We've got a great board. When I came on board, I said all I wanted to do was add value to the education sector and to the local community and to the students in the city. That was my 3 things that I wanted to set out to do. And I think from a member perspective, we're making connections that are really setting up businesses and the education sector to be successful. And that's between high schools and higher ed. That's between vocational providers and industry. That's, all those connections are happening daily, And I can honestly say we can't do that without the team that we have at Study Gold Coast.
Your team is awesome.
Get along really well with the team for sure.
Yeah, we have really been lucky in the quality of the team that we have, and they're a great bunch of people, and I really get up every day to go to work to work with them. So I'm really lucky actually.
Really for sure.
And you bring through there's a bunch that have also come through as students as well, right?
So exactly right.
I think that's it's just practical. Drinking the Kool-Aid, you know what I mean? You're saying, okay, we want to create students with great outcomes, and then they end up coming back around and working with you guys, and then they're growing and progressing as well. So we believe in the same thing. We've got now a couple of interns. We're looking at bringing on more and just creating more opportunities for them. I think it's important.
It's extremely important that businesses like yourselves and ourselves as Study Gold Coast. I mean, we're just a small team in the scheme of things, but we're passionate about bringing young people through the pathways, and we work with some quite large businesses. We work with the airports and the Sunland Group and large developers and all the way through to major businesses, and we encourage them almost every time we see them to take on a young person. We're passionate about it, and I think it's making an impact. Our members are along that journey with us as well. Our core 4, which is TAFE and the 3 universities. We work with them, monthly to sit down and say, what are we doing in this employability space? Who's taking on interns? What are we seeing? What trends are we seeing, so that we can steer the conversation and the narrative with young people to say, have you seen these opportunities in tech? Have you seen these opportunities in, design? That's another one on the coast that's really booming at the moment, is design. And I can't wait to see where we get to as Study Gold Coast and education and the coast more broadly. Should be exciting times.
We've done a bit of work around that as well, around lining up internships, not even with us, but externally with other blockchain providers and whatnot for our students.
Great.
And and it's interesting because it's one of the things that all the colleges or TAFEs or RTOs or whatnot, they always ask is, okay, so what jobs are available, or what placement is there, or how did someone get some experience in this space? And it's like, it's interesting as a discussion point, because it's like, okay, we're in an emerging technology industry, so there's not that many companies that are really robust at this stage. There's a lot of startups, but even the startups are like, I'll take interns. And it's the same as us. We're getting momentum, and we're getting to quite a solid state. And a bit more maturity in our own business, and we're taking interns. But and
it's a great way of finding people that we want to bring on full time. I think that's the important thing as well. We're looking to scale the team, so
but there's parties external to us which are in the blockchain space who are like, like for example, Leanne Kemp, who's the chief entrepreneur of Queensland. Hopefully, I don't know when her term ends, but she's been in the seat for nearly 3 years. Unbelievable lady, runs Everledger, which is one. I think she's spoken at a few of the Study Gold Coast events.
We worked with her.
Yeah, she's great, epic. She's a powerhouse. She's someone who has the most outstanding work ethic I've ever seen. Right. But yeah, same like with her well-established company. It's it got ranked as the top 50 fintechs in the world. So
and that's tracking like
diamonds and things on the blockchain, luxury goods, wines, all sorts of stuff like this. And they just recently did another one.
Cobalt, was it?
No, I think it's around renewable and cyclic economies and whatnot. But long story short, there is like even her company was like one of our biggest issues with recruitment, and they're getting close to 100 staff. He said when we're putting out the opportunity for somebody, it's really hard to quantify their skills, and we don't know if we're going to end up with someone that we then have to try and manage through or retrain or whatnot, and it becomes a very expensive exercise recruiting. Like you recruit somebody who's not the right fit for your company, you've got two choices: get rid of them, which is it sucks for everybody because the cost of acquisition is already there, and then the second side of that is retrain them. And if all of a sudden you're retraining everybody that comes into your organization, you've got a budget for that because they're not productive for how long, right? Until they start generating an income. And as a smaller startup, particularly, you can't afford to take 5 people on and retrain everybody for a certain period of time. You need to have ROI, otherwise you can't employ people.
Exactly right.
And it's interesting though when you see these companies and we said, oh well, would you guys be open to taking interns? They'd either be later stage of their qualification or they would have graduated, and it was like, we'll take interns. And then I've had conversations with a number of other providers, Gold Coast space as well, who are in the blockchain space, who have said, we'll take people. And then
people getting
we
picked
pick up the phone.
Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3. In the first couple of units, they're getting picked up.
So. And so I could see very clearly, and some ideas that we've had is helping to cultivate that startup scene by putting good quality people in, and this is I guess the beauty of us being in the situation of providing that educational framework is we're in constant dialogue with the trainers all the time, getting feedback on students' progress and whatnot. Now, we don't dive into the details of their project work because, well, firstly, it's not our business, and there's a privacy side of things which we fully respect. But we do get feedback from the trainers to say this person is next level. Keep an eye on them, or you should definitely see where they're going to come out, because some of these people want to work for a company and they're ace, they're top level people. They're very talented, and you're like, that is someone that I'd put forward and recommend to anybody. And then on the other side, like Austin mentioned, there's startups that people who are in early stages of our course have engaged conversation with a startup who's got a bit of funding behind them, and without even meaning to say, oh yeah, I'm studying blockchain. And next thing you know, the conversation is, well, hey, can you look at our project and give us some feedback? And then next thing, so that person's going, oh, so what, you want to employ me full time? And literally people are getting full time lead positions where they go, oh well, we need to restructure your project. The way it works is you're going to die a slow, death of 1,000 cuts kind of thing. Or we could restructure it like this. We can go about it this way, and then they end up using the course as the framework for the project, which is a real project, funded and whatnot. And that for us is exciting to see, because these are outcomes where, at this point, we've got 100% employability for the graduates, which is always nice. But like we've got a big opportunity ahead of us. I think the biggest opportunity is coming as we move into 2021. We're going to have some really exciting things. Obviously, we'll continue to improve our own business, provide other emerging technology courses and whatnot, and continue to expand our network. But what really I see the excitement in is if we can cultivate that startup culture. And I think we've had these conversations numerous times where I've even business modeled some of this stuff and gone, man, if I just had a bit more bandwidth, we could do this. Got a great idea, we could do that. We could put some teams in place, and then we can build the army around it, the support army, and get the startup culture really thriving here.
Yeah.
And it's ripe for the picking. So
it is.
Exactly right.
But
I was just going to say, you supporting internships like you were just articulating there. Very often we hear from businesses, whether they're taking on one of your interns or taking on a graduate intern or someone that's just started their course as part of their work integrated learning placement. Often we hear that the person came into the business and they actually taught the people in the business something. Like they've actually given the business more than more than they thought they would get out of it. So, I mean, it's happened to us at Study Gold Coast. I said to my team this morning, we had an executive meeting, and I said, just don't be afraid to experiment, just try something new. And I got that from one of the interns that was working with us, she came to me and said, I'm going to try this new thing that was like a new social media stream, not to promote Study Gold Coast, but it was
TikTok,
for our
right?
own.
No.
No.
Did you get you up doing a dance or something? No.
Yeah, it was like Loco or something. It was,
okay.
It was a bit random, and I had a look at it, and I thought, you know what? There's so many opportunities day in day out that go missed by just not having a go or trying it. Chances are you might miss the mark and have a stumble or upset yourself for a minute and go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But that just made me think, if this graduate or this person that's an intern has that sort of mentality, those are the types of people you want in your business. Those are the types of people, particularly someone that's studying blockchain, to come in and go, hey, Alfred, you graduated almost 30 years ago. Well, what do you know about this? I'm living this, I know this. So look, I think that's something that people don't realize, and it's something we see every day.
And we had I had a conversation a while back with someone who's I think he's a billionaire actually, and his advice was, and he consults also to some of the biggest companies in the world. He said his advice to any corporate of any size is to disrupt yourself. He said, create a division or a person or a role or something within your organization which solely focuses on disrupting your business model through irrational means if needed. He said take whatever strategy or approach you need to disrupt yourself for the purpose that if you don't, someone else will. And you may as well be the one that overtakes your business internally rather than it coming externally and gobbling you alive. And I thought about that, like, when he first said it, I thought, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then I started thinking about, especially when you're in startup mode, you're kind of nimble enough that you're gobbling up these ideas and you're changing approach until you find your happy path. But still, then it's like, well, what can we do differently? How can we stay cutting edge? And doing what you do gets you to where you are, but it doesn't get you what you always want. Necessarily. So that being a bit nimble and maneuvering where you need to, I think, and I love that you're taking it to the executive meeting saying, guys, the intern said, and you just don't know who you can learn from. Like, you got to be all ears, whether the new kid on the block or someone seasoned veteran. There's something to pick up from everybody for sure.
And COVID's kind of made us all think like that, right? Even at Study Gold Coast, we were doing trade missions all around the world to, hang on a second, we're running student accommodation grants and online study tours, doing all these things that we had no experience in, but we've had to be really nimble. And COVID's the great equalizer. And through the pandemic, I must say, within our teams, the younger generations that we've seen come through the student hub as we've worked through the process, they've actually handled it really well. Change for them is just another day, and just
the only constant in life is change.
Exactly right. So they've been coming through the hub, and we've been saying, "Oh, how are you going?" Thinking that they're going to be struggling with it, and they've been saying, "Oh, yeah, good. Great. Thought of a business idea, or working. I've got this internship, and I'm absolutely loving it." So,
Well, it just changed the perspective of people. Like, I know for even us as well, is it cut the amount of meeting time that is required, because now it's like, okay, you want to have a meeting, then there's generally an agenda now. We jump on a Zoom call. That means no travel, no need to sit around waiting for people who don't show up. If they're not there, you're still doing your own thing. It goes ding, someone's online, you go, hey, how you doing? Have your meeting. And you don't need to take an hour and a half plus travel time, whatever, to get the job done. So sometimes meetings are just very brief. You're just like, oh, get to the point. Yep. Okay. Agenda ticked off. Okay, great. Anything else? Nah, go and do your task. We'll meet up again in the future. And just so efficient. And all of a sudden now we're saving all this time, which again, like just the fact that the resources existed, but they weren't leveraged until there was a need. And
it's compressed timeframes, I think. That's what it's done.
And I think blockchain's probably at that sort of point too, that the pandemic's actually brought it to a point where people are going, oh, hang on, all this technology's happening. We need the infrastructure of blockchain to make it, sustainable, the growth of technology. And I'm not as detailed in my knowledge as you guys are about blockchain, but I would imagine we'll be sitting here at episode 1001. You keep saying 101, but I would imagine...
Thousands a lot of episodes.
It is, but yeah. Well, we'll just have to pick up our game.
This is the first one?
Well, this is the first one in this studio.
In this studio.
Okay.
And so we're going to continue to keep this standard and quality, thanks to the efforts over there. Martin behind the camera.
Thanks, Martin. Doing a great job.
Yeah, he's doing an excellent job, so I appreciate that. So but by all means, we we'll eventually get to 1001. I don't think it's going to be a race to 1001.
No.
But most importantly, that we get good people like yourself on hear a different perspective, and I think it's been fabulous to hear what you've got to say about the direction that you see the coast. The opportunities for the student market, and it's nice to know that there's leaders like yourself who have got a clear vision, and it's easy to follow people who know where they're going. And it makes a difference. And I know for us, we're really proud to be part of Study Gold Coast as members.
Thanks,
not just for the parties and drinks that we've had in the past, which is also lovely, but also for the people, the connections, even the introduction that you made recently for us is one of the biggest business developments that we've...
It's a game changer. Right?
It's a big play, and for example, TAFE Queensland is also obviously because our courses are then vet student loan for 2021. So that it just opens the door for Aussies to get in a low barrier of entry. But no doubt TAFE Queensland, being the first runner in the TAFE scene, is going to kind of
snowball into the other.
It's going to kick the beehive, so to speak, and then next thing we'll probably have TAFE New South Wales at our door. Hopefully, TAFE New South Wales, come on board
if you're listening.
If you're listening, and if you're
we'll
not,
send this to them.
We'll tag you in. But this is the sort of thing, and then we can open the door across the country and like right now, even our smaller providers are doing some great things. The private providers and the publicly listed ones are phenomenal to work with. So they're quite nimble. We get a lot of interaction with them. But it's just this sort of relationship we've got with Study has been phenomenal for us. We're really grateful.
Thanks, mate. The one of the things that has really, I guess, brought our value to the forefront has been the pandemic, and I had maybe 30 to 50 people ring me in that first couple of months of the pandemic saying, run an education facility, with thousands of students. What are you doing? How do we manage this? We've never managed this before. What are we doing? And also I had to go to council and give them a briefing and update the mayor on what was happening in the education sector. And I said to my team, we need a plan, and coming back to your point of it's easy to follow people with a vision and plan. Our city has a strong, vision for the city and a strong plan. And we just fed off of that whole narrative of have a plan so that people can know where you're at. And we developed our 3-stage plan, which was essentially, adapt to delivering things online. And then it was, keeping people engaged and adding as much value as we possibly can and supporting students. And then working our way back to business as usual, which is our safe student corridor. And people really responded well to that. I went to council and I said, well, here's our 3-stage plan. We've thought it through. We've talked to our members. This is what we want to do. And people responded really well to that because all of a sudden we saw even large providers say to us, we really like that. We're going to adopt that over here to what we're doing. We're going to use that 3-stage approach. It's slightly different because we obviously do things slightly differently, but we're going to use that similar sort of format to have something to communicate just to the staff. Because at that stage everything was in the air. So I can appreciate your comments around having a plan and that just comes back to what we were saying about the team. When we really rely on our team is when things aren't going the best. So that speaks volumes about our team at Study Gold Coast and, I mean, the relationship we have with you guys.
Well, we were a bit lucky in one sense because we were geared for online delivery. But the downside to us with this pandemic was it was the week we'd finally got our first Cricos provider. We were like, we're going to conquer the international market. And then we even had students like on the list ready to go. And all of a sudden it's like borders shut, no international. So we went, pivot back to our core, which is online delivery. And interestingly, I was talking to a provider the other day and they were talking about, this is a potential provider that might come on board with us as well. And they were talking about like how they're limited in what they can do. And I said, well, what about the international offshore market? Like domestic enrollments offshore. And the lady I was talking to said, I've never thought of that. And I was like, hang on. This is a wide open opportunity right now, is to deliver Australian education abroad, but with the anticipation that when the borders open, you can bring them in. So you get the visas sorted and you get them going. And she was like, I hadn't thought of that. Let me go and do some numbers and see what we can do. So it was quite interesting just how when like we were adapted for online already. So our perspective has always been online delivery first. And especially with emerging technology, if we can't deliver online, then there's probably something wrong with us, But in the case that's our default setting. And then to go into classroom, it makes sense. You can fast track things, you can workshop things, but you can do all those things online. And the tools and resources that we've all been now very comfortable with, the Zoom calls and the and whatnot, it just speeds it all up.
Well, education more broadly has been working on online delivery for 10 years. And I think the pandemic just
pulls it together in 60 days.
It just solidified the aspects of education going online very quickly, right? It was a slow, we're going to develop these programs online. Because it makes sense. If you can deliver a program like yours where you can spend time at home or while you're doing something else learning, anywhere, either listening to a lecture or participating in an online forum or online classroom, and then switching it up and saying, I'm going to spend a bit of my time actually practically doing something because I've got the theoretical knowledge that sits behind it. Now I'm going to practice actually doing it. That just makes sense in an educational framework, right?
Yeah, which is exactly the makeup, right? And especially because it's project-based.
Exactly.
So you learn the theory. You don't need to spend days and days and days sitting in the classroom learning theory. You learn the theory, now let's put it into action. And then the next point of call is, now that I've implemented this, am I on track? And you get your instructor on, and it might be a one-on-one session. All of a sudden they're working through, well, hang on, have you thought of this? What about this? And you're refining your project. Now that I know, like we've got some amazing people working on the training side, and they're not prescriptive in whether your project is good or not. Like they're not assessing that, but they are absolutely assessing, have you got the thinking right so that you can go about your business and create your project, that it's thorough, it's been well thought out, it's well structured, that you've mitigated risk, that you've explored the opportunities, you've exploited any vulnerabilities and explored how you're going to solve that, the interoperability issues. And this is where, it all gels together. It all gels together. It's and like we're really like just what you're saying about your team. We're really lucky of who we've got in our team. You know, like, and we really consider everyone to be like quite close and virtually family. You know, like
how many people have you got on board at the moment?
We were
in terms of
this the other day.
providers.
Providers.
Yeah.
Or, okay.
I think across Australia we've signed 11 or 12 providers, and then not all of them have come online yet. Some of them just move at different paces.
Sure.
And then out of that, they all have multiple locations. So, again, it's online. So they might have, for example, 6 or 8 locations, but that's their campuses, but no one's going to campus. They're doing it online. So it's just kind of irrelevant how many campuses.
And then there's people overseas studying as well.
And providers offshore who are either working, typically that we pair them up with an RTO here in Australia to offer the Australian qualification, and then they go and do some marketing on the front end. So they're doing the customer acquisition, work with the Australian RTO to then provide the qualification, and then we have a few trainers within under the blockchain collective umbrella, which we introduce to the colleges and RTOs to be the trainer. We don't get involved in the commercials or whatever. We just quite literally say, here's someone to help you get off the ground. And then now we're in that stage where we're encouraging all the providers to get their own trainers up to speed so that they can take their own workload as we move forward. So it's, startup and growth phase is really fun.
Scaling up.
And it's always fun. Like there's always a different challenge every day. There's something to look forward to, something to cry about every now and then. But typically
sounds like my life.
Well, look, it's like the only people on the planet that
cry together, right?
Well, the only people on the planet that don't have any problems are the ones who aren't above ground, right? Let's be real. Problems are a sign of life, and adversity gives strength. So you just got to tackle the problems, move forward, and embrace it. So it's part of the journey. Like, a bad day is not really a bad day. It's just a bad moment in a good day.
So here's a question for you, gentlemen. You work in the tech space, and education is a transformative industry. It evolves, albeit it stems from hundreds and hundreds of years of learning pedagogy. What do you see the future of education looking like, given what you know, and given the history of education and the journey that it's on?
I don't know if I'm going to be favoured in this comment. I've got quite a out of the box.
So do I.
This.
So do I. But mine's a little different.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's hear yours.
Go.
I'm excited for this.
Okay. So now,
some providers might not like us, but they
look. This is not about. This is more about how it could look and how it could go and the outcomes. See, I'm very much results based and less about. I'm not interested in how much time someone needs to spend because I don't believe it needs to be a mandated time frame. I believe if you learn the skill or you can do the job, I don't care if you take 15 minutes, you take 15 hours, as long as you get the result. And that's even from an employment perspective. We're more interested in getting people to have outcomes than we are to have like someone sitting in a chair per se, right? Because it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't. So in the education, I've got this same idea, and it's not my idea. But there's a gentleman by the name of Ricardo Semler out of Brazil, and he did a TED talk which is called "The Business with Almost No Rules." So it's like
you're getting excited about this.
Yeah, I am. Here, let me move it a bit.
I've struck a nerve here.
Well, this is something that actually really got me thinking about how things could be different. So his TED talk was quite literally about. He ran a business of about $300 million a year, 20,000 employees, virtually no office. He has no offices, no office buildings, nothing. He's all results orientated. He has one HR person, and the only reason he has one HR person is because they started right at the beginning as he was adjusting the business model, and he didn't want to let them go, so they're still there. But reimagine the whole business model. Now, as a result of this, his business model was, I want people to add value to my business, which is in line with what you said earlier about adding value. I want people to come to the business and say, I can do this for the business. And within parameters, say, this is how much I want to earn. And as a result of that, he was like, I love this idea. So he was like, don't come to me and ask, what's my role and how much you're going to pay? Do the opposite. Tell me what you're going to do and tell me how much you want. And if it fits, you're employed. And I don't care if you take 1 hour or 1 week to get the job done. You've got to do it because you said you would, right?
Yeah, sure.
And then it creates autonomy, which is really what people genuinely thrive off, right? And so he said in the recruitment process, his biggest obstacle was that he had a real trouble recruiting people because people's mindset was the opposite, was tell me what to do, tell me how much. And so he decided to create an education framework for high school, grade 8 to grade 12, and he put it in the poorest favelas in Brazil. So he got people who had no background, no money. He made it free for the people, and he trialed it. And the average result in Brazil for these students, typically outside of his course, like his framework, was 55. The students were graduating at 97%. And these are literally social economic situations terrible. They're in the favelas and they're getting these amazing outcomes. And what he did is he restructured the education framework. So instead of having like classroom teachers, scripted curriculum that you have to learn in this order, he had tutors and masters. The masters are community members who are passionate about a topic and very skilled. The tutors just move the class forward. They had mixed classes, so you learned what you were interested in at the time. So they would give you 10 choices of things to learn across the school, let's say. If you wanted to build a bicycle rather than care about the soccer or learn about planes, or it could be whatever topic, in that learning experience of, let's say, building a bike, they'd do the maths, the physics, whatever, and you'd learn all this stuff. And so what happened is he created the high school. It was wildly successful, but he realized people recruiting out of that school for his business still had an underlying thing about being told what to do. So he brought it all the way down to primary school. And then he brought it down to kindergarten. So now from kindergarten to high school, he's got 5 schools across the poorest areas of Brazil. Typically, they're the most successful students in the whole country. 97% is the average score for across the whole school. Unbelievable outcomes. And that's just reimagining the business model or the education model. And what he did, instead of having set curriculum, he had what's called, I think he's got 62 curriculum tiles. So during your 12 years of education, or however long you're there for, you have to just at some point study these topics. And that's their formula. And it doesn't matter what order you come across them, but they even teach life, birth, death, taxation and money and financial all these amazing things that you're like, you finish school and you're like, what do you mean I got to do a tax return? What's that? Right? What a rip-off. They're taking my money. Why are they doing that? Right? All these things. And like, you don't ever really get taught about the cycle of life of death and you know, emotional management, and you don't learn any of this. And so that for me, and I know it's a long-winded answer to your question, but it's something that I've thought a lot about. I looked into, and it was something when I first had when my wife gave birth to our son initially, and now I've got 2 kids. At that point, it got me thinking, because the very antiquated system that exists, it has validity, but it definitely needs. Generally, like when we talk from primary school through, it's still rote learned. It's still learning stuff that's not really relevant.
It's tipped on its head.
It does. It needs to be shaken up.
I think, shaken up. And this is always what we say. You know, we want to tip things on its head, change the way things are.
You're right. And that was where we, even with our course, one of the things is to be industry focused and outcome based, project based, because we wanted people not to learn theory of how to do this, learn practical skills and come up with new business models and reimagine things. So you kind of have to break the current mold and disrupt the current industry sector or that current way of doing things to capture the value that is actually available if you look holistically beyond just finance. Because in the case of blockchain, you can capture financial value, natural value, and social value. And you can quantify it, whereas it's very hard to do outside of a blockchain ecosystem. And so it just, so that's the long answer to your question.
No, that's great. That's great. You've obviously given it some thought then.
A lot.
I wasn't sure if you had.
Conversations about this stuff.
And what about yours, Austin? What's the...
I think... Well, as we've had a lot of conversations about this stuff.
Yeah.
So
You've been on the other side of that conversation many times.
We've spoken about this for days.
Yeah.
And I've just always believed, at school, I didn't sort of enjoy just the going and doing the traditional schoolwork. I don't think that sometimes teachers go, okay, well, you've got to do this or you're not going to be a success. I think that's not the way to be able to necessarily create people that are going to actually have outcomes in life. And, it's as I said, I think the education system just needs to be shaken up. And I think then the employment side of it needs to be shaken up also. We've spoken a lot about outcomes-based. We'd rather have someone that, you go, okay, here's the outcome I'm looking for. And someone go, okay, I can do that in 3 hours and then go surfing for the next six hours. Rather than someone else who just sits there for 8 hours. Do you know what I mean? Like you want to have those sort of relationships and that sort of business and that sort of culture. Because I think that's what it is. It's it's about an education culture, but it's also about a business culture.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, that's a good way to think about it.
Funny thing on the surfing topic, just got a short story which is a crack up. So my brother, he just we went to school down at Palm Beach Scrum and there's a big surfing culture in that school, and you can even do surfing, like sports excellence.
My son did a surfing class for a while.
And a few of the pro surfers who are now world champions were actually in my brother's maths class.
Wow.
And the funny thing is, they used to wag school every time the surf was good. And the maths teacher used to lose his
cool about it.
He used to lose his cool about it. Every time they wouldn't, they'd come back to class, or they'd rock up way late or whatever, and he'd be like, he said, you guys are never going to amount to anything, all this skipping school, you're going to be bums on the street. And now they're all multi-millionaire world champions, travel the world, surf paradise, do what they love. They're super passionate and had amazing success. And there's a whole group of them. And that whole group are all the world champions. They're all best friends. And still to this day. And it was just kind of ironic because they broke the mold. What they really did is they followed their passion and they were dedicated to what they loved. And I think underlying with everything, they mastered their skill set. And it comes to every industry. Mastery is the key. Right? But it was just funny because they could go surfing every day, and they literally did, and the outcomes showed. So I guess they had the School of Waves.
School of Waves.
School of Waves.
School of Waves.
They went to the School of Waves probably more than they went to
actual school
maths class for sure.
Right.
So
that's good.
Okay. What about you?
I've given it a lot of thought.
And you're like, oh, here we go.
given I've worked in education for a very long time, and my background is education. And I came from a practical background where I was a tradie before I got into education.
Yeah, cool.
I taught trades as part of my educational journey.
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to be tipped on the head.
No.
No, I'm joking.
No, look, I think like every industry at the moment, everyone's sitting back and going, even if you're in the pick an industry, aviation, technology, development, whatever industry you're in, construction, people are going, okay, COVID, how do we do things differently given the parameters we've now dealt with, right? So it's a good conversation to have. I think many people have many opinions. I think the philosophy of education is great. I think the heritage of education is also good to maintain some sort of structure and stability. I think you're absolutely right. It's life in general has evolved over the last, let's say, 30 years rapidly, right? 30 years ago, you didn't have a phone where you can scroll through and learn 100 things in a few minutes about things you probably don't care about, but you can learn a lot
in Encyclopedia Britannica.
Facebook, like you learn that the bakery down the road has a new recipe for something and it's made up of X, Y, and Z, So information is readily available and people digest it a lot quicker they do now than they did 30 years ago. So I think you're right. We need to reimagine what education looks like and how it's delivered. I mean, it stems from a long history, though, so I think you need to bring people along for that journey. However, though, COVID's introduced a new metric, right? So all of a sudden, you've got these people that have worked in an industry that has, evolved over time or has shut down because of COVID. And people are saying, well, actually at home, I've been doing all this chemistry because I've been working on my lawn and I've, been feeding it all these things to keep it alive as a plant. I need to get those skills recognized so that I can apply them to a different industry. How the education sector will adapt to that metric, I think, is going to be the most important, because it's going to be about experiential learning. It's going to be about recognizing the volume of learning that has occurred over that person's, working history of 40 years. But it's also going to take into account that they might be an accomplished pilot. Or they might be I'm not picking on the aviation industry, I'm just using that as an example. So they might be a really well-educated person that has a lot of knowledge and experience in a particular industry that needs to pivot rapidly, get acknowledgement of all the other aspects of their life and their life journey and history. So you're almost going to have this culmination of volume of learning versus experiential learning versus practical elements of applied learning that come together in some type of recognition of a qualification, and that might be come under the banner of a learning journey of a type. So I think it'll be interesting to see not only the high school evolution of things as technology comes into play, but I think it'll be important to see how people recognize the shift of the world in general. So that's a different kind of coming at it slightly differently, but
it's interesting good. And there's two things in that. So the recognition of all these subtle skills is what comes back to that credentialing possibility with blockchain, where you can capture that element and then it can mean something. And that's just tying it back into my brain of thinking about blockchain. So that is quite apparent, and I can see that too for exactly the same reason. And the other thing which I've forgotten, so we'll come back to that when it circles back around the room or whatever. But there was some other point. Doesn't matter.
No, that's okay. So it'll be interesting to see where it gets to. I know there's always going to be a place for the big infrastructure of schools, universities, and people love the experience of participating in a group learning journey. And that's that fundamental element of going to school with a group of your peers and learning from each other and interacting with each other. I don't think that'll die off.
No.
I think people are just going into school probably more educated now than ever before.
I think that aspect of school is critical, is to have the networking and connection. And in fact, that's the one driver that I say to my son, who's 7, grade 2. I'm like, just go to school and just have fun and connect and just enjoy yourself. Now, he's super bright anyway, so we don't have to worry about from his academic thing. But we definitely encourage the interaction and go, this is the point of school, is to go and explore and be a kid and connect, right? Because you'll find out eventually that a lot of stuff you learn you don't use. Totally agree.
It'll be interesting. We've sort of, during this conversation, we've unpacked a few industries and a lot of information, right? It's it's been good to get your take on it, coming from a different industry where you can see an opportunity for us to all learn from technology and get involved.
Well, I think on that last note from my side anyway, is I think also critical for us is to establish that it doesn't need to start after school. And so one of our objectives is to start getting our qualifications, and we'll continue to develop these out, but into the high schools. Sure. And ideally is schools look at technology as something that starts from, the early grades of school, because let's face it, our kids, I know you've got kids who are super tech. One of your son is super tech. He's right into there. He's doing all sorts of wild stuff now.
He can probably teach me a few things.
I think he could teach all of us some things around that.
It just only in the last month or so.
But just being more.
How old is he?
They're just
12.
Right. Yeah, it's a digital savvy kind of thing, right? and even this morning, last night,
Raspberry Pi and all.
Last night, my son goes, "Dad, how do I set up? How do I create a YouTube channel, because I want to start streaming my gameplay on PS4 and create a channel and get some followers?" And I was like, "Oh, here we go." And he's 7, and I'm like, don't know if I want him to have a YouTube channel yet, but he's asking, so let's go down that road. So I'm like, all right, well, let's go and set one up. Here's a learning curve for you. Yeah. This is your entrance to digital literacy. But that's grade 2. I mean. YouTube channel. It's coming.
Yeah.
So
I guess that highlights, the risks associated with it as well.
Well, then I started reading the T's and C's to the privacy when you're setting up an account. I was like,
we own you and your information, and anything you ever do for life.
Well, even the settings on the PS4 thing, and I'm going through, and it's like they've got one for parents setting up a kid's account, and it's like, what would you like your child to see? And I'm like, I don't know whether I should put a tight fence around this. So I'm like, he can only add friends who he personally invites, no messaging, no this, no that, because too young to be exposed at the moment. Yeah. But this is the whole thing, is we're entering an era where this is their language, and it's almost critical that we encourage the learning to happen, but then we just have to be mindful of the risks associated with it, and just guide people through this journey, because I can imagine, just like your son is right into technology, I can imagine my son is he's not too far away from it himself. He's going to get to a point where he's, hey Dad, he's always, hey Dad, what's your company? It's Blockchain Collective, right? Yeah. What do you guys do? And then I give him a bit, and he's like, oh yeah, that's right. So you never know. He might be the next blockchain superstar that comes out in a few years' time.
Well, let me tell you, my generational story is my dad's mid-70s, right? He manufacturing jeweler.
Yep. Okay.
Done very well. Made the Melbourne Cup for 11 years.
Yeah.
And I've been very proud of what he's achieved in his life, but. He's
Melbourne Cup.
Yeah, the trophies.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, for the horse race. Yeah, for 11 years.
Wow.
And enjoyed it. That was his sort of crescendo. Of his career, is to do that for 11. Awesome. He agreed to do it once, and then it just sort of, that was his retirement plan, was to, okay, I'll do it once and then I'll retire. And 11 years later, he was like, okay, that's enough. But that's an interesting story in itself. But he doesn't have a mobile phone.
Yep.
He only uses cash, right? And then you've got my generation, which is, I don't use cash and I can't live without my mobile phone. So you can imagine what the next generation of your kids will be like when they reach our age, early 40s, where, they might not even know what cash is by the time
that's possible.
Their kids
There's
roll
enough
around.
Conversation of that happening around the world in the blockchain world with digital currencies. So,
and then if you can imagine over the span of, let's say, 40 years, if it's gone from never seen a mobile phone in my life to now I can't live without one.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what happens in the next 40 years?
Yeah.
It's even like having a DVD, like.
What's that?
Or if you have a DVD or a cassette. If you pulled out a cassette, if I pulled out a cassette, my kids would go, "What's that?
Yeah.
Is that like?
Do you have to wind it back with a pencil?
My car hasn't got a CD player.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. Why do you need one?
Gone are CDs.
When was the last time you put up a CD in anyway?
Yeah.
I think the same one that's been in my car is still in there since I've had my car.
Yeah.
I literally just put YouTube on whatever a podcast or something, and I just put it on the passenger seat, and off we go. I drive my journey. I don't even Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Exactly right. So
Yep.
Well, that's good.
Well, it's been. I think
absolute.
it's been unbelievable.
Absolute
thank
pleasure.
you, gentlemen. It's been we've unpacked the
education, Gold Coast,
the universe.
The universe.
We'll save that for podcast 1001.
Yeah. I can't wait for us to get back together. I'll be. How long will it take you to do 1,000 podcasts? I'll be just about ready to retire.
Yep.
Well, then we're going to have to up our game. 5 a day.
5 a day.
No, it won't be 1,001. We'll bring it forward from there.
Yeah.
But again, just want to say thanks so much for coming in. It's been a pleasure. And appreciate all the work you're doing with Study Gold Coast. And for us as Blockchain Collective, we're stoked.
Thanks, guys.
And we're going to go out there and create the next wave of emerging tech entrepreneurs and consultants to sort out the planet.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Awesome.
Thanks, mate.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Awesome.